Well, hello, folks. This is Steph Morrison from the Canadian Schoolhouse in this fresh new year of 2022. And I am so blessed to be able to start our first live stream of the year with Connie Fortunato. Am I saying your name right there, Connie?
Absolutely.
So welcome to the show, and you're from Music Camp International. So I'm gonna just get you to start right off. Just share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing at Camp International, and just how music, what kind of music training, teaching, and experience that you have.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, this June, Music Camp International will be 20 years old. And I started actually the thing that prompted me to begin it. I had done music camps all over the United States in about 35 or 37 states in the United States, and saw such amazing growth and development in all young people. You know, they certainly didn't all become professional musicians. That's not what it was about. And that's not what I believe is so essential for all young people. I believe that what music does is it empowers young people.
Mhm.
It pulls together so many things that aren't, I'll say, data driven, but it can develop self confidence. It gives hope. One of the things we've found here during the pandemic is that it really helps combat the feeling of isolation and
Mhm.
loneliness. It gives community, it builds strong bonds, it stimulates creativity. It enhances and facilitates language development. And now, the more research we do, the more we're finding that music is the one thing we have that absolutely integrates and involves all the chambers of the brain. Well, before I
Yes.
knew all that, I was in observing it. I had been just tremendously inspired by a Dateline NBC television special on the plight
Mhm.
of the Romanian orphans after the fall of Nicolae Ceausescu, and came to
Yes.
Romania to do music therapy with orphans. And the dramatic changes that I saw were things that would take me, years to describe. But the thing that was so interesting, Steph, along with that was other children who didn't have tragic backgrounds, who had wonderful backgrounds, who had great families, who achieved in school. They said, "Oh, can I do this? Can I?" And what we found not only was this amazing community that all of a sudden did not have a strata. It wasn't, this person, because it was not a competition, it was a
Oh,
collaboration.
yeah.
It was through ensemble and through choir that they could achieve together what no one could achieve on their own. And that began to open up a whole new world.
Mhm. And that's
So, for
I love how you're sharing about sorry about that. We might have a little bit of a lag here. But how you're sharing about that ensemble, like that togetherness. And I think one of the things that impressed me most, because really Music Camp International is a little bit unique in music, even in the homeschooling uh, offerings, right? What we have as homeschoolers, and I think most parents are really happy to have their kids involved in music, but sometimes it's a little bit daunting. If like myself, I don't really have a music background. I enjoy listening to music. I've enjoyed playing piano. I've got one. You can see one in my background there, which I'm really still learning. I'm not proficient at it, but I have this love, and so I want to share that with my kids as well. Again, not just as you said, it's not about becoming a professional musician or getting even really, really good at one instrument, but there's lots of brain scientific studies, right, on what learning music. A little bit, I find it similar when I compare that to learning languages too. Really important in music. I don't know if you agree with that as well, that music is really like learning a new language. You have to learn how to operate or singing. learn how to operate your voice or learn how to operate an instrument. So I love the togetherness. So why don't you introduce, because we have got 3 videos for our viewers to see, just to see a little bit what Connie's doing with students, and what kind of gets produced, and what that togetherness is. So what it is as a group, and that social interaction that the kids really get with your program. So did you want to say anything to introduce them, or shall we just get right into the
I
videos?
do. You know, one of the things that happens so much when we think music, we think private lessons. Oh, then I have to get an instrument. Oh, then I've got to make my kid practice. Oh, then they've got to go to recitals. And it's just this drudgery. And that is not what we are about. We are about finding the joy in community and ensemble. And so one of the things that we did when the pandemic hit was, instead of going to, I had for 18 years worked extensively in Romania and Ukraine. It had worked with over 20,000 children. I mean, you know, I'm talking all of the major cities. We pivoted to a virtual format. And what you'll see in these videos is that the children are quote unquote individuals. I mean, they're in their home, they're singing, and but what they are is they're part of this community. And the other thing I want you to know is that both of these videos, we have children in 5 countries. We have children in India, in Kenya, in Ukraine, in Romania, and the United States. So just a short little clip to give you an idea of a couple of our Christmas songs might be fun. That one is called Christmas Kumbaya, and in addition to English, the children are singing in Swahili. It's a Swahili folk tune is what it is.
Oh,
Do that one verse.
oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm. If I can make just another comment, it's because it's one of the very unique things. I don't know any other music organization that does it, at least with the devotion that I do. And that is when I
Mhm.
started Music Camp International, for all of my live concerts, I literally hire a professional symphony orchestra to accompany the children. I commission all the orchestrations because I believe that is what inspires. I think it is a tragedy
Mhm.
when children become adults and they've never been exposed to really good, high quality music. And so wherever I go in whatever city, I'm in Kiev, Ukraine right now, and I have members of the Kiev Symphony Orchestra that are going to accompany my concert on Sunday, January the 9th. And so when we went to a virtual format, it's like, okay, how do we do that? Well, you saw
Mhm.
instrumentalists on the screen. And what I love to share is that
Yes.
we now have an international professional symphony orchestra. Some of those instrumentalists are in Romania, some of them are in Ukraine, some of them are in Boston and New York and San Francisco. And so they come from all over the world to accompany the children. And not only has it made a huge difference in the lives of the children, it's made a huge difference
Mhm.
of the professional musicians. And so it's just a very inspiring interaction.
Oh, I bet. That was great to see of course the singing is wonderful, and just that coordination or orchestrating, like on your part, to get everybody to that point, because that didn't just come naturally, right? These kids all worked a while before that to get that all together. But then what you do with the videography, with the video editing, I guess it really is just the editing, right? Because they're just really taking the screen from each student and then integrating it into just a really lovely creative and really a creative keepsake. Because I'm thinking, as each of those kids would, I'm sure, get that video, right, of their performance, and now they
Absolutely.
get to keep that um,
Absolutely. And we
with
have a
whatever they
YouTube.
do with music.
I'm sorry, I missed the
What was
question.
that? You said you have a YouTube channel, right?
We do have a YouTube channel, and all of the concerts, well, not all the concerts, but many of the concerts are there, both the live
Yeah.
concerts and the virtual concerts. So we're
Uh-huh.
and we're very committed now to both tracks. We really are developing parallel tracks because we understand that virtually we can get to places that we can't get otherwise. Before the pandemic, I actually
Mhm.
commuted to Eastern Europe from San Francisco about every month. That's a lot of time in
Wow.
the air. And
Uh-huh.
yet it's very limiting. But now I can get to Kenya and I can get to India and I can get to South Korea and I can get,
Mhm.
all over the world. So we are committed now to becoming a global organization. And for me, and for the young people, it's so powerful. In fact, we do have a short video of one of the young ladies from Minnesota who joined Musedics, which is our after school music ensemble program. We do that 2 days a week. One day we do instruments and one day we do choir. And it is designed to coincide with the school calendar. We do two 13-week semesters. So, anyway, Emma was part of our class. And I think the thing that got to her most, many things, she's just a fabulous young lady. But I think it was so much the international feeling of community and having classmates
Mhm.
and students and
Yeah.
family in another part of the world. And she tells us just a little bit about that.
Great. Let's see what Emma has to say.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm 16 and I participated in Musedics this semester. Musedics has helped me gain experience in a new instrument, as well as building confidence in the virtual choir setting. My favorite part of Musedics is that it has enabled me to share my love of music with other children around the world. I've really enjoyed the sense of community Musedics creates, and I can't wait to participate in the next semester.
So, you know,
Yeah,
I'm one of
that's
those
wonderful.
I believe that the young people say it so powerfully. And you know, the thing that I've seen, and I've worked with so many different communities, one of the things that I learned when I first started coming to Eastern Europe was that it was highly stratified. And yet I find that in so much of education, you know, it seems like the great opportunities are sort of reserved for an elite few. Or we have this term that we've coined, musically inclined. I think if there would be any term I would love to eradicate from the globe, it would be that, because I believe passionately that all children have music inside. The question is not whether they have music inside. The question is, am I good enough to get it out? Can I create the safety? Can I create the intrigue, the motivation, the inspiration, the setting, the techniques, the comfort that helps the child and the student discover and develop what is inside? And, you know, because we do know that music is the one thing we have that integrates all 5 chambers of the brain, we know that each child may have it a little bit differently. For example, if a child carries a tune at a very early age, we think, oh, they're musical. They're going to be a musician. They sing perfectly, blah, 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 blah. If they don't, what do we say? Oh, you're not musical. You can't carry a tune in a bucket. Go weave baskets or go grow oranges or something like that. That's really not accurate. And when a child says in music, I don't understand that. Well, as teachers, what do? We explain it with a little more volume and a little more intensity. And what the child is really saying is, that's not the way my brain works. Could you present that in another way? And so instead of going in through one gate, we need to go in through another. It's like if a house has 5 doors, you want to find the one that's open, and that's the one you go through. So maybe a child will do it rhythmically, or maybe they'll do it verbally. I have done a lot of teaching with marginalized children. And right before the pandemic sort of put us on lockdown, I was working with some marginalized children in a community in Romania. This particular community was sort of the poster community for the UN and for marginalized children. The United Nations had gone in and spent $5 million to repair. And after 5 years and $5 million, they closed the folder and stamped it failure. I went in with a very small budget, 15,000. And we found that by involving the children in ensemble music, we facilitated their literacy to the extent that children who had been cast aside and pushed to the margins as being illiterate for the first time in their lives were passing their exams, were reading books. And it was absolutely revolutionary. They've also done experiments in many of the refugee communities right outside of London. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber has done an amazing experiment in one of those schools that was all, I call them immigrants from the Stan corridor. Incidentally, there are 27.5 million refugees in the world right now, young people without homeland and heritage. And so many of these young people are pushed into different settings, and it absolutely drowns them. But when we give them music, they learn the language, they learn to read, they learn to build relationships, they learn to do math, they learn I mean, it's just exponential. And that's the enhancement
Mm-hmm.
and the empowerment that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know music does that a lot, even how you talk about that. It's really like a universal language. So I can see how easily that people, your students like get connected, taking one of your programs, and how they can get connected with different people who may not even actually speak the same language as them, but learning through music. Now I know you do most of your things in English, but being able to just uh, play music with each other. I mean, I can see how that's like a wonderful. I love that you shared that too, because along with what we're doing as homeschooling parents and educating our kids, and it's pretty much the same way. How you talked about, okay, well, we're all musical, and one way may not be the way to teach, and I kind of find that with every subject, or there's
Yes,
not one way to teach.
exactly.
There's many different ways to teach, and our public education system has kind of one way to teach, and very rarely do they sway from that. There can be some kind of accommodations, but it still doesn't really sway from that, which is why homeschooling is so great. As a parent, we can either be the teacher ourselves, and which we can do with great material. I sometimes say I don't teach myself. I just find the right curriculum that teaches for me, or the right lessons or courses, right? And so, as you say, that same thing with music, and you've really just actually energized me a little bit more. We've done a little bit of music. We've had just had instruments in the house that the boys have been doing lessons on, and we've kind of been at a lag of doing anything music wise besides listening to it. We love having music on in our house, different kinds of music. So, but to actually really get into that different part of the brain. You can also share that. I don't know if you've shared that yet, Christine, who is in the background there doing all our technical stuff on the side. Share that link, because Connie wrote an article that was in the Homeschooling Minute, which is just a weekly homeschooler e-news email that goes out. So she wrote a little bit in there, and already talked about that, about how music actually activates all chambers of the brain, and how it's not just about learning music, like just saying, oh, I can play this song or that song. It's that process of learning, right, that is really more what we're looking for. And now we may find these budding musicians that are just, we now have introduced them in a way to learn music, and they take that far, and they maybe do that professionally, or they just take it through their whole lives. But I think music is so much for every person's life. um, but I will say one thing. So as a parent, like, give me a few ideas uh, about how we can really approach teaching music in different ways. There's definitely your program, and that's going to be a great option. So all you parents watching out there, check out what's there. There's lots on the Music Camp International website about that Musedics program, and I think there's a couple other programs you have as well, right, Connie?
Sure. Our
But
after school program is called
all right,
Musedics. And but if
Musedics,
I can just run back, I want to pick up one comment that you made that I think is so essential, and it ties in with your question. I think one of the fallacies that we can get into in education, whether it's public school or any kind of school, is we can look at the child or the children or the class and say, I wonder how smart this child is. And Dr. Howard Gardner says, when you look at a child and say, how smart is this child? You've asked the wrong question. When we ask the wrong question, we get the wrong answer every time.
Mhm.
The question is not, how smart is this child? The question is, how is this child smart? And that, I think, is the first key for parents in discovering the best way to help their child musically. Ask the right questions. If they enjoy skipping or dancing or drumming or sitting at the piano or singing or listening, or, I mean,
Mhm.
there are so many things. Find interesting music. And let me just give you a little clue. 70% of the ear develops between the ages of 3 and 7. And we used to think that little children needed simple little ditties and anything complicated they couldn't do. That's not true. Okay. Simple little ditties can be boring. This week, I have been teaching right here in Kiev, and I'm working with a large percentage of the children in my class. They're wonderful. They are all teenagers, probably 85, maybe 90% have never done music of any kind at all. Not sung, not
Hmm.
played, not read, not anything. And I am teaching them
Mhm.
adaptation of the Christmas portion of Handel's Messiah. And I wish you could hear them do it. It's
Mhm.
just, it would knock your socks off. And they're playing bells and they're doing what we in the West know as the Ukrainian bell carol or carol of the bells. They call it Shedrik. And these students are absolutely, and they are so excited with themselves. I work them so hard. And when they finish, they cheer and they dance and they're up and down. So take your cues
Mhm.
from your child. A great way to begin is to take them. I'm so sorry. I thought I had turned it off. A great way to begin is to take them to a live concert and let them hear somebody
Mhm.
really. Children, I have seen children absolutely go crazy over symphony orchestra. When our children were young, we took them to the Nutcracker. They were so fascinated by the orchestra. So expose them to a variety, then ask them, how did you feel about that? What did you feel when that
Mhm.
person was that? Hmm. What did you, how did that instrument sound to you? Talk to me about your feelings. Talk to me about what was
Mhm.
happening inside when you were listening. And that will give parents a clue as to which door is open and follow that. They might say, I'd really like to learn the piano. I've two grandsons. They brought home their recorders from school. It was like, oh, Nana knows how to do that. Let's get out your recorders. But instead of playing cross buns, we played Mozart and a
Mhm.
kleine music. Guess which one motivated them? And it's the same three notes.
Mhm.
It's
Oh, is
exactly
it?
the same. Now, I provided the symphony accompaniment, because that's what I do. But that's what I'm
Mhm.
talking about.
Yeah. And was such a fun way to really look at integrating music into our family life, right? To be able to, again, as you mentioned, just expose them to different, and even, I mean, I really do believe seeing a live production, seeing a live show, a live orchestra, anything like that in performing arts, is there's something about being there live, and that's great when you can have it. But with the internet today, we can really expose our kids to every different kind of music, um,
We
finding it
can.
somewhere online. So it's so fabulous that you don't have to think like you have to go to a live performance. It's great to do that at some point for sure.
Mhm.
But there's so much that we can get just by, a few clicks and finding something great and different kind of music. Even as we're talking here
Yeah.
today, my little mind is just going with some of these different kinds of music and some of the stuff that I've started on in the past. I mean, we did that whole recorder kind of thing, and some lessons on that. And the boys did the recorder, and then they did like guitar and drums. One's really interested in drums, the other guitar. So we just rented instruments for a little while. And they did
Here.
sometimes just playing around and having fun. But then they were doing lessons, so I just found a little chorus for each of them to do in that to get familiar with that. And now I'd really like to, we're at that point of doing that that again, when I want to get instruments back in the house, stuff that we don't have already here. I mean, we have the recorder, but really being able to, and renting instruments is not very expensive either. So as far as thinking that in your homeschool, those that are watching, it's not really not very expensive at all to just rent an instrument. I mean, a good instrument to buy, it can be, which is why I rented them. Like, I didn't know how, if my boys are really into an instrument, it's great to have one bought and sitting in your home. But as you're finding out what really makes them, what really hits a chord with them, definitely renting instruments is a good way to do that.
And then getting them together with friends. So if you have a group, you could even find, like, one of the things that Emma did. Emma was at a much higher musical level than some of the students that she was with because they were brand new. So I put her in an ensemble situation, and one group played the soprano recorder, which is small and easy, and Emma has a lovely tenor recorder, and she played a counter melody. And then so we put the counter melody together with the simple melody, and that ensemble brought so much joy, so they can get together and do music with friends.
That's excellent. Yes. So so I encourage you all watching, whether you're watching this live, feel free to ask questions. If you're watching this live, if you're just watching the recording, you can still find so musiccampinternational.org underneath there, and you can still contact Connie and any of her team about anything that you might be interested in as far as a music chorus curriculum, anything you want to do in your family. They've got really unique options there that I have not seen, and I've seen a lot of different and really good music programs, lots of good music programs out there that we have available to us as homeschoolers. But Music Camp International really seems to have a unique approach to it and a perspective, and very much worth your time checking out. One other thing, I think we just had one more link we wanted to share, right? So we did an article that is called Music Meets the Ears, and it's really a bit what Connie was talking about. Music is not just, we shouldn't just have that in our homeschool because somebody has shown a musical interest, right? We want to be able to just like introducing languages and doing different kinds of literature, English-based stuff. Some kids will want to do a little bit more with that than others, but we all want them to have a good foundation of communication, right? And I really believe that music is one of those foundations of communication that we should all be instilling in our kids in some ways. So with that article, I'm just going to pop this up and show our poster here. And so you can get this. This is a PDF that you can get on oh, thank you for taking that banner off there for a minute. So this is a PDF that is on and it really actually just connects all the different areas of life. I don't even want to just say subjects, because it's not just about the subjects, but it's like how music, as the heading is, how music opens doors. And it really does. It opens doors emotionally. I love how Connie shared about just that talking to your kids about how, the feeling they get from music, because music really does invoke emotion in us all, no matter the age, kids and adults. But it really can connect to any part of life. And I just love to be able to encourage anybody to find a way that integrates into your family life, but then into each individual child, because they're not the same. I've got a 10 and a 14-year-old, and they're I love being able to bring more music into their life, but they're not necessarily loving the same kinds of music, which is great. We can all still listen to all those different kinds of music, but I love that you've just given us a bit of direction, Connie, as well, just on some of those tips that we can do for our kids, and just bringing out that music that's already within them. Anything else you want to share? Well, we can wrap up now, and if there's anything else that you feel is great for our audience, just.
No, certainly. If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me, Connie at musiccampinternational.org. We are getting ready to launch our second semester of Musedics. And so if you are interested in that, there is one of the menu items on the website talks about Musedics and the different times. We teach in all different time zones. I actually am up at 4 and start teaching at 5 a.m. because I want to accommodate our children in India. And so we do all different time zones. Just get in touch with us and we can make it come to life.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Connie. I am all the better just a homeschooling mom myself, just to be able to have this chat with you. So thank you for taking time out of your, what I know is a very busy schedule for you right now. So glad you were able to join us.
I was honored to be invited. Thank you so much. And Happy New Year. Have a great year.
Yes,
have a great
thank
year,
you, everybody.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes.